Good morning and warm welcome. I am Manali, your host for Sadgun Sangmeet, 63rd virtual webinar. We continue with our food hygiene and food safety series. Our today's topic is audit, documentation and records. Shall be taken by Mr. Muralidhar. Shall be covering auditing the ISO standard systematically and independently and impartially, documentation requirements of document control and records, other areas like HACCP and basic normative references. It shall follow panel discussion with Mr. Amrindu Mahamud. Sadgun Sang for food safety, cleanliness and hygiene has been embedded into the Indian culture since the Harappa and Mohenjo-daro times. Cleanliness is equally important when it comes to food and its preparation. Cooking, through a clumsy and multitask oriented process, needs to be carefully handled to ensure that the resulting product is impalatable and contains no foreign material. Food safety and food hygiene are important as they ensure that the food you handle and produce is safe for consumption. Food safety is the foundation of trust in the food business. Entrepreneurs can establish a good reputation built on food safety and quality and derive profit. Small and medium sized business very often do not realize that they are not applying food safety and quality improvement measures turns out to be more expensive than applying them. In this regard, while hindsight may be good, foresight is better. This means not leaving this important element to a chance or ignoring it, but to actively and alternatively plan, implement, and pursue food safety for the initial stage of food production, inputs, processing, packaging, storing, and distribution. Let's quickly go through the agenda. Virtual inauguration by Dr. Sundar Kataria, invoking the blessings of deity, chanting of Gayatri Mantra, introduction of speaker, presentation by Mr. Murlidhar, introduction of panelist Dr. Murlidhar, Mr. Amrendu Mahamuni, Mr. Yogesh Chandekar, Dr. Sundar Kataria, panel discussion and questions and answer session, and then closing session. Sadgun Sang,
Thank you.
conceived and led by Dr. Sundar Kataria, driven with a mission to evaluate the quality, safety, and environment awareness levels of industry. Sadgun Sang is a series of educative, informative events aiming to emulate professional on possible solutions to current issues of industry and economy. Brief introduction of Dr. Sundar Kataria. He is the chairman and managing director of International Certification Services Private Limited. He has done his mechanical engineer AMIE. He has also done his honorable doctorate in business management. He has started his career in building India's first nuclear power plant at Rawat Bhata, Kota, Rajasthan. He contributed in developing India's first oil and gas field at Bombay High since its inception. He was head of industry and offshore development with TNV for 2 decades. He is founder of first Indian confirmation assessment and inspection body known as International Certification Services Private Limited, which is a provider of total quality solution under single umbrella with wide spectrum and services. He has received Lifetime Achievement Award of NACE Coron, also received several national and international awards. I request Dr. Kataria to virtually inaugurate the session. Please join us for recitation of Gayatri Mantra.
देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः भर्गो देवस्य धियो यो नः
Introduction of the keynote speaker. A brief introduction of our keynote speaker, Mr. Murlidhar. He is Vice President, Business Continuity in International Certification Services Private Limited. He has done his Masters in Computer Science, also MBA in Marketing rank holder. His area of specialization is information technology of information system security. He is qualified IRCA approved lead auditor and lead trainer. ISO 9001, 14001, 45000, 27001, 22000, BS 25999, business continuity 50001 and 30,000 chip recycling. Please welcome Mr. Murlidhar. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Manali. Can you listen to me, Manali?
Yes, sir.
Are you able to listen to me?
Yes, sir. I'm able to listen.
Okay, now I have to share my screen. So I will be, you cannot share. I have to start my screen. So can you give me the rights, please? You have to remove this.
You have the right, sir. You can start presentation.
No, I cannot. It says you cannot start the screen while the other participant is sharing.
Now try it, sir.
Yeah, just one moment. Just 1 minute. Yeah, I can share now. I think.
Murli sir, you can do it now.
Yes, can I do it now? Yeah, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We have today the presentation on the audit, documentation, and records. I will be focusing on the ISO 22000-2018. As Manali has already introduced me, I'm a lead auditor, ISO lead auditor and lead trainer for the last 22 years with the large multinationals, and for the last couple of years associated with ICS. Okay. Can you see my screen, Dilip?
Yeah,
Yes,
we can
sir.
see your screen. Yes. Please go.
Great. Okay, great. Right. Thank you. Okay, so we move on to the next slide. Right. We will briefly go into talking about the audit, the documentation part, which means the documented records and the procedures of the control mechanisms. So briefly, we'll touch upon these subjects from the viewpoint of ISO 22001-2018, and we will talk about also the hygiene and other factors. Right. So first and foremost, we need to understand what is an audit. Audit is basically a systematic, independent, and documented process for getting an objective evidence and evaluating.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Anji.
Murli, sir.
Anji.
Put the PPT on the presentation mode, sir. So it will be full screen, so it is visible properly.
Full screen chahiye aapko?
On the right down corner. Fourth option.
Down corner. इसमें जाना पड़ेगा क्या?
नहीं वो नीचे आपके देखिए ना 69% लिखा हुआ है ना, उसके बाजू में आइकॉन है 69% नीचे राइट साइड में नीचे
मेरे पास 69% नहीं है
नीचे
अच्छा ओके तो
हाँ, उसके बाजू में ये नहीं 6 उसके और थोड़ा लेफ्ट में
just before
हाँ
voice is also breaking actually.
अभी ठीक है Are you able to see it?
फुल स्क्रीन मोड पे नहीं आया सर
फुल स्क्रीन फिर नहीं आ रहा है ओके एक मिनट ना नॉर्मल स्लाइड सॉर्टर रीडिंग व्यू स्लाइड शो एंड
हाँ स्लाइड शो पे करना है आपको स्लाइड शो
इज दिस ओके
स्लाइड शो पे शायद से वो नेक्स्ट स्क्रीन पे जा रहा है आपको वापस से स्टॉप शेयर करके रीशेयर करना पड़ेगा.
Okay, so
I don't think so, Murli sir. Just click on that button next to that 80%. No. Yeah. No, the left one. Uska left. Uska left. No. Uska left. 80 ka left. This one. Correct. Click on it.
full screen आया.
नहीं सर, उन्होंने शेयर किया है एक्चुअली. उन्होंने एप्लीकेशन शेयर किया है ना, तो वो नेक्स्ट विंडो में चला जा रहा है.
Okay.
तो स्टॉप और इशू करना है क्या?
हाँ, स्टॉप करके वापस से रीशेयर कीजिए वो विंडो. आप जब शेयर करोगे तो वहां पे आपको फुल स्क्रीन वाला पीपीटी दिखेगा, वो आप उसको शेयर कीजिए.
एंड शो. ओके, एंड किया शो. इसमें जाके कहाँ गया भैया?
और यू कैन ट्राई द फुल स्क्रीन मोड.
या one minute, let me do it. Okay.
हाँ, आप फुल स्क्रीन शेयर कर दीजिए, एप्लीकेशन शेयर मत कीजिए.
एप्लीकेशन शेयर नहीं कर रहा हूं मैं. Where is it gone? Screen. Oh wow, trouble, huh? टाइम चला जाएगा. Okay, this. Screen. नहीं हो रहा यार, स्क्रीन नहीं हो रहा है. I got some trouble, huh?
फर्स्ट ऑप्शन फुल स्क्रीन कर दीजिए आप. शेयर पे क्लिक करते हो तो आपका फर्स्ट ऑप्शन
आना चाहिए ना, वो आ नहीं रहा.
Sir, आ गया sir. We can see it. Just we can see your screen now. Just move to your presentation.
Okay, great.
We see your screen now. Just move to presentation. That's it.
Great. चलिए. Okay, view. Participants can now see this. Okay, great. So, okay. So the first slide, can you see this? The second slide, can you see this? You see this now? Meaning of audit and everything. Are you able to see systematic, independent?
No, sir. We see the Jarna's email, sir.
There's some problem with it. I'm not able to stop sharing. I think. Exit. How to exit from here? Exit. Okay. दिखा दे उसमें से झरना, अगर आपके पास है तो उससे दिखा दे वहीं से.
Yes, sir, we are sharing.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's some issue here coming up. आपको दिखेगा नहीं तो फिर दिक्कत है.
Yes, sir, we are sharing. Just a minute.
Yeah, okay. अब दिख रहा है झरना? I can see it. Hello?
Please go ahead, Murli sir.
Yes, sir, we are also able to see it.
Great. Okay. So basically we started. Let's go on quickly. It's the food safety. So a systematic, independent, documented process for getting an objective evidence and evaluating it objectively. That means nothing but simply looking at a systematic, independent review is called as an audit. Okay. Yeah. Next one. Can you go very quickly, please, Jarna? Okay. Very, very important to understand. There are 7 principles of auditing. First, of course, starts with integrity. That is called as the foundation of professionalism. Second is a fair presentation. It should be truthful and accurate. Third is due professional care. That means due diligence and good judgment in auditing. Confidentiality. Of course, today's requirement is that all information has to be kept secure. Independence. That's very, very important. The basis for impartiality. Evidence-based approach. Of course, you cannot be talking in the air. It's very important to understand that it's based on evidence. And finally, which is added during the 2018 versions, is the risk-based approach, also called as the risk assessment, where you have the risks as well as the opportunity. Okay, can you go to the next one, please, Sushma? Jarna. Jarna? Yes. Understanding
Yes, sir.
yes, I can see. It's okay. Just I'll complete it. Understanding the auditing process. If you do not understand the basics of auditing, you must understand how to do the audits. So it starts with the source of information, and then the sampling methodology. And just now, as I mentioned, it has to be against the audit evidences, and then evaluate what the criteria is, that is the SOPs, the work instructions, the standard concerned, the specifications, and so on. And based on that, you come out with your audit findings, either a non-conformity or an area for improvement or an observation. And then review it finally with your audit conclusions on the findings of the various methodologies, that is the non-conformities or areas for improvement. So basically, you start off with the source of information and end up with the audit conclusion. So you must understand the basics of audit. Okay, can you go to the next one? This one, please, Jarna. Right, there are different types of audits, as we all know. First is the internal audit, which is the first party audit. And then the second party audit is done by the organization on your suppliers. And the third party audit is, of course, the certification audits generally, or the accreditation bodies, also called as ABs or CBs. So these are the different types of audits. Yes, can you also, you are sharing. I cannot do anything here. I cannot go to my documents here now. Okay, go ahead. Just now I mentioned about sampling. This is an example of a sampling methodology. Of course, you can adopt any or all of your methodologies in place. Generally, a 5% correspond to an acceptable confidence of 95%. That means, generally means that the 5% means that the auditor is willing to accept one wrong upon 20s. So that's a fair amount of samples. And that takes us to take a good judgment, which I just now told you a few minutes ago, in terms of your audit conclusions. Of course, the sampling methodologies, you can visualize the way you wish to do that. Every certification bodies and accreditation bodies have their methodologies in place, but the percentage methods of 5%, 95%, making it 100%, 1:20 gives a good judgment-based audits. So the conclusions will always be a good sampling methodology in place. Okay, so that was about the audit methodologies. Then can you go to the next one, please? Right. So we come to the ISO 22000, which is the second edition, which was started in June 2018. And the first one was the ISO 22000-2005. Before that, before the 2005, I had the privilege of doing the audits way back in 2001 for the Taj in-flight services, along with a superb technical expert. And that was as per the ISO 9001, that is the 1994 version, vis-a-vis the HACCP. So the food safety has come a long way, and now we are into the 2018 version, and it adopts the Annex L, also called as the Annex SL. So Annex L was the one which started the adoption way back in 2012, and the first standard which adopted the Annex L was ISO 22301, that is the BS 25999, and from there on we have had all the standards now adopting Annex L. Okay, good. Next, please. Right, so that was about the entire auditing practices. Now we go to the standard. All the standards now practice the PDCA Act. The PDCA is very, very simply mentioned, and the clause numbers 4, 5, and 6 starts with the PDR planning, which is the context, leadership, planning, and support, which starts with the planning, and then you have the do, which is clause 8, and then you have the check and act. So the PDCA is now widely accepted, and it has been in existence for ages together. Okay, next one, please. Jarna. Jarna, your slide is not moving.
1 second, sir.
Okay. Now we come to understanding a document. It's very, very important to understand the document. विवेक, मेरे को थोड़ा सा इधर से मेरा document में कैसा देखो इसको यहाँ से. I cannot access any of my PCs.
Alt tab कर दीजिए ना सर, आपका स्क्रीन ये हो जाएगा, मिनिमाइज हो जाएगा.
Control A, हाँ.
Alt tab.
Control A, ना.
Would you want to try sharing your screen once?
No. I just want to see, because now let me not disturb what she's showing. So I just want to see my document. I wanted to show something from my documents. I'm not able to do that.
तो आप एक बार share कर लो सर, बहुत simple है. एक बार मैं stop share करता हूँ, आप share कर लीजिए and just click on screen. So whatever you will see, we will see.
That is true, but I'm not. You cannot say the screen बोल रहा है. जाने दीजिए. Okay, leave it alone. I think let's take it forward. I think otherwise it will be stuck up. Okay, so first we have to understand documented information. It's very important to understand documented information. Document and information, which is come up way back in the Annex L, and there was nothing specifically mentioned as a documented procedure or a documented record. So it's all now filtering down to documented information. So some of the information that has to be documented, and there has been so many discussions how to do it. So we will just try to explain and explore what the documented information several are as per the ISO 22000, along with what are the records. So a lot of documented information is required. A document means something that is required by the organization, and once that is the required, there is information. Information is something that the organization requires. For example, a specification, which is an information, and that gets documented. So a basic example to understand the documented information is the information which needs to be in a document form, either in soft or hard or both, depending on the organization, how they wish to document it. So that is very nicely mentioned in the ISO 20000, very specific to 22000, whereas you do not get that requirement in the other standards. So some of the documented information is, of course, the scope of the organization. For example, processing of food items, or trading of food items, so on. So that is the first one which starts up. Then we have the policy, then emergency situations. For example, if you have any emergency situations, how are you going to handle those situations? Then you have the starting point of the HACCP, which is the preliminary steps to enable hazard analysis. that is also called as the HACCP. That is the first step towards doing any HACCP, which is hazard and critical control point. Okay, next one, Vivek, please. Then next one, you have the documentation is the characteristics of course, the raw materials, ingredients, and the product contact materials. Very, very important, because this is the one which is falling under the do part of the standard, which is under clause 8. So we must have the raw materials, the ingredients that is required for the food processing. And very, very important is ending up with the characteristics of the end products, which means you should have an expiry date or the best before date, whichever is required as per the legal requirements. But technically, it is always recommended is the expiry date, especially in terms of, for example, milk, which is highly perishable, or for that matter, fish, highly perishable. So how are you going to store it, and what are the characteristics of that? So that has to be done, because the entire risk management of the ISO 22000 is focusing on the biological, chemical, and physical attributes of any food products. Okay, next one, please, Vivek. Right, and of course, yes, intended use is very, very critical. This is what is the intended use? Because the 22,000 standard of 2018 has specific reference to even animals. So earlier standards were only for human consumption, but this time it is also intended for animal consumption. The next one is the very, very important, which is also required by the Indian government law, which is required of a flow diagram. Flow diagrams before you submit it for your licenses. So you need to require to submit the flow diagrams. Flow diagrams is a systematic method of receiving the food, storing it, preparation, what sort of temperatures, if any, that is required. And of course, very, very important is on the rejections or separation of food. And then finally, you have the final preparation of the food and eating it. So for example, you have very much important requirements like the salads, which generally spoken is that the moment you cut it, the lifespan for that is 45 minutes. After for 45 minutes, all sorts of things start happening. So that is not, it is not mentioned in the standard, but these are the general practices that is generally seen. Okay, next please, Vivek. Right, then very, very important, you need to have the entire processes, which you can call it as your FSMS or the food safety manual, which is must have a description of the processes and its process environment. Process environment here means it is specific to the work environment, again, physical, biological, and any other hygiene requirement. So food is very, very critical for human consumption. And then you also have a documentation of hazard identification, and all the hazards has to be identified along with their acceptable limits in terms of risks. Okay, next one, Vivek, please. Then you have the very, very critical for this standard only, which is the control measures. You have an OPRP and the CCP, which I think the food safety has been happening for so many of the standards in the earlier Sadhguru-Sanghs. Everybody knows what is PRP, that is the prerequisite programs. Then OPRPs are the operational requirements for the PRPs. And of course, the critical control points are the points where it cannot exceed or decrease the actual levels of measurement. For example, you will have the temperature to be constantly maintained at 80 degrees centigrade will be a critical control point, or perhaps the final step where there is a physical hazard of any foreign materials, for example, nails or wood particles, etc., which can be easily been taken out. So that is what the critical control points are, and that is all part of the ISO 22000 under clause 8.5, under, to be precise, to be falling under the operational controls. And then again, you have the control plan, which is nothing but as the hazard at critical control points, and the OPRP plans is nothing but the procedures. Technically, you talk about the OPRs, it leads to the operational procedures that you would require, where you will be able to control those things in terms of understanding what the prerequisite programs are, and that is what the hazards are control plan. So the control plan, these are all the requirements. So it is mandatory documents that you need to keep in terms of the ISO 22000. Yes, next one, please, Vivek. Right, then critical limits and action criteria. Critical limits, as I just now mentioned to you, 80 degrees centigrade if it is required. So these are the limits. It cannot exceed, it cannot come down. And the action criteria is to continuously monitor the requirements. Now, it need not be a record, but it has to be monitored to give an assessment and to state that it meets the criteria of a critical limit. And then, of course, the implementation of this entire part is the clause 8.5.4, which is the implementation. Yeah, next one, please, Vivek. Right. So then you have the coming back to the requirements of the, this is the only standard where you have a specific clause on corrections. Most of the corrective actions actually includes a correction and a corrective action. There is no preventive action in a corrective action. It is never a CAPA. It has been existing since the 1994 version, which I have been practicing for the ISO 9001. And of course, the food safety standards, HACCP, that is the Codex Alimentarius, way back in 1994. And the word is very clear, is correction and corrective actions. A lot of confusion of people asking for what the corrective action and preventive action. There never was a preventive action, and the standard now is very clear that preventive action is straight away called as risk assessment only. So corrections and corrective actions are clarities brought out by the standard. Only the ISO 22000 has the correction word in the standard under clause 8.9.2. Very good dissertation has been given in terms of what is a correction, and 8.9.3 also tells you what is a corrective action. So it is a fantastic tool for you to do an analysis in terms of FMEA, that is the failure mode effect analysis, or if you wish to say a fish plate diagram, where whichever methodologies you wish to take the corrective action, a lean sigma, or whatever you wish to do that. Right, and then you have the very common things which is called as the withdrawal or recall. This is nothing but to assess the product belongs to you. It belongs to the required specifications. So this is a mandatory requirement which has come up which has been existing in the 2005 standard also. But then you need to have a clear withdrawal and recall. We had a couple of withdrawal and recalls way back, I think 2 to 3 years ago, when we had the situation of Maggie, and then they mentioned very clearly that our products at all given times meet the criteria. So withdrawal and recalls are critical to assess how good is your product, including not going out of the you call it as the expiry date, or making sure that it is not duplicated. So you should be able to recall your own product by way of backward or forward withdrawal methodologies, that is from the lot number or batch number, or you can take it from your invoicing dispatch manifest, and then coming back towards assessing how and where it took place, what time did it got the manufacturing process, including the batch number and lot numbers. So this helps substantially well in terms of assessing an emergency situation or a legal unfortunate event, if that might happen. So you will be able to easily take care of yourself when you conduct a withdrawal recall requirement. Okay, next one, Vivek, please. Right, so that was all the mandatory documentation that you require. Now we come to understand what are the records. A record is an event which has completed and you record it, which is mandatory to demonstrate that the work that has been completed meets the requirement, and therefore it is a conformity to the requirements of the standard. So the first one is for obviously in all the standards as is in the food safety. So you should have your food safety objectives. Then very, very important, people. So you should have a record of your own people, external experts who develop your systems, external experts. The word is experts. It doesn't say that it is a consultant. It says external experts if you have taken them, and what sort of this thing. And then you also in the next one, yes, please go ahead, Vivek. Correct, you're right. In the next slide, it talks about the consultant who is doing the management system for you. That also you need to have a record in terms of his whatever methodology you have taken to demonstrate his competence as well as reference requirements. So there are two parts to that. And of course, then you come to externally provided processes, which means any of the process which by default you have given it as part of your outsource, which you think can be done better, or perhaps for the financial requirements or for ease of doing things, you have this given as externally provided processes, which means also getting it done from any other outside source. So you need to have a record. Next one, please. Of course, competence, you don't need to say, discuss it all. That's a mandatory requirement anywhere and everywhere. If you don't have the competence, then I think we are not into the right place. And then you have external communication, which means a communication methodology to your emergency people, the NGOs, the legal communication requirements, the bankers, or the insurance people, or anywhere there is a communication which you need to do. And then the control of documented information would also talks about the documentation as well as the records. And internal and external, it is come twice, sorry, the typing error. And control of documented information is your control of records and documentation. Yeah, next one, please, Vivek. Yes, traceability system. Again, you take it to your batch number, your lot number, or whatever methodology you wish to adopt in your traceability, which is identification and traceability. It is entirely up to you. You can also trace it with a date or whatever methodologies you wish to do, but there should be a record to demonstrate traceability. Then on-site confirmation of flow diagrams, which is a critical one. There should be a record. Of course, as I told you, if you are even applying for an FSSAI license, you need to have a flow diagram submitted to them. And of course, then again, there is a record as also the requirement. The implementation of the actual implementation was first to document your hazard control plan, and then you implement it. So when you do the documentation implementation of the hazard control point, all the lessons learned will come there, or it should be seen how you are maintaining the food safety standards. Yeah, next one, Vivek, please. Yes, of course, calibration. The calibration record, all the standards required. and then you have those verifications and validations, verifications, and then of course corrections. Corrections, as I mentioned, whatever the corrections are doing for the non-conformance, including the corrective actions, a record of that is required. Yes, next please, Vivek. Then of course corrective action. Yes, handling of potentially unsafe products is very critical. So you need to have a record, the handling, the storing, who are the people involved in how you're going to handle the food products. So if you see the photograph there is an ice cream there, which has to be handled correctly. It has to have a clear methodology, because food is consumed by human beings and the animals, of course. So that is why it has to be safe in all respects. I have one more slide separately, which I will show you what are the requirements of the HACCP once this is over. Then the person evaluating the release of the food product, which means after the production and the release in the dispatch, who is the responsible person to release the products. And disposition of non-conforming products is a critical one. Otherwise, again, it will lead to food hazards. So even the food hazard, food is, if you all know, the moment it goes to the expiry date, then it becomes hazardous. So it needs to be very carefully handled in disposition. Yeah, next one, please, Vivek. Withdrawal recall also, you need to have a record, and of course, monitoring and measurement, evidence of the results achieved throughout the process, what all you are going to measure and monitor. For example, as I mentioned, 80 degrees centigrade required for during the process. So you need to show the evidence of such results. It need not be recorded, but if you can show it online also and how you are monitoring, that is good enough to demonstrate your capability. Okay, next one, please. Analysis of final evaluations. And of course, management review and audit programs are mandatory. It has been mandatory for ages together, along with the non-conformity and corrective actions, and how you have taken this. These are all the records requirements, which is a mandatory requirement. Yes, next one, please, Vivek. And of course, anything you are going to update your food systems will require update of your food systems. Could mean your manual, could mean your HACCP program, could mean your risk assessment sheet, could mean your HACCP, could mean your control mechanism, could mean technological advancements, or anything, whichever you are updating must be recorded adequately to demonstrate compliance. So if you say that on the top page, it is the dessert, which is the photograph of the food, which that also shows that once you have the dessert, the food is over. So these are the mandatory documents, records, and the auditing requirements. And can we go to the next slide, please? Yes, a very big thank you to our ICS group director, ICS Group Companies Director, Sumit Kataria, for his excellent implementation of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the entire group of companies. That is a very, very special thanks to Sumit Kataria for a magnificent leadership shown. And then thanks to Jarna for making all this happen under the illustrious leadership of Dilip Negi. And there is one more person who has to be mentioned here in our office, and that is Sushma Mayekar Kindalkar, who has been very active in all these sessions, including being a host for her, showing her, optimizing her work in the entire job design. So special thanks to all of y'all. And thank you so much for listening to me. I'm just about 3 minutes late, because of the up down. So thank you very much. I now hand over to Jarna. I think I had to show one more slide. So just hold on, Jarna. I'll show one more slide, and okay, leave it. Let's go to the discussion stage. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you so much. Take over, Jarna. You take over, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir, for the presentation and explaining the topic in simplifying way. Let's move ahead with panel discussion. Our panelists are Dr. Sundar Kataria, Mr. Muridhara, Mr. Amrendra Mahamuni, Mr. Yogesh Chandekar. Please put in your questions in the chat box, which shall be taken up during the discussion. A brief introduction of Mr. Amrendra Mahamuni. He is the director at Samartha Technologies. He has completed his BSc Chemistry. He has also done his BTech in Food and Fermentation. His area of specialization is he is a lead auditor for ISO 22000, 2018 and ISO 9001 of 2015. He is auditor and esteemed member of National Food Magazine Udyog Prerna since 1998. He is US FDA approved PCQI certified person. He is FSSAI FOSTAC trainer and assessor of for milk and milk product industry, manufacturing industry, basic catering and street food vendoring and COVID-19 Indian regulation body. He is also FSSAI FOSTAC hygiene rating auditor. Please welcome Mr. Amrendra Mahamuni. Brief introduction of Mr. Yogesh Chandekar. He is General Manager of Certification at International Certification Services Private Limited. He has done his BE Mechanical, Diploma in Business Management and Advanced Diploma in Industrial Safety. His area of specialization is Management System Certification, Third Party Inspection, Plant Safety Audit. Please welcome Mr. Yogesh Chandekar. Over to you, sir, for panel discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Manali.
Thank you, Manali, for great introduction.
Thank you, Manalu. I once again welcome the delegates for this today's session. The main speaker Murli sir has taken us through the entire standard requirements in terms of the documents required and the mandatory documents required and the records that are mandatory to be kept by an organization to demonstrate that whatever they are doing, they are meeting the standard requirements. Thank you, Murli sir, for your nice presentation as usual. Our second panel discussion member is Amarendra Mahamuni. He is also having background and auditor of food safety, and of course our CMD Dr. Sundar Kataria. So all the participants are requested if you have anything that you want, any queries or anything that you want more elaborations, you can type it in chat box. We will take up with these experts during our panel discussion.
Yogesh, I request please mute others because a lot of background noise is coming. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I think you have muted yourself, Yogesh.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So, sir, here I just go to Murli sir first. So, Murli sir, you have mentioned the mandatory documents and records. Those are required as per the standard.
Yes.
So apart from these mandatory records, what could be the additional records that the organization should have to have better control on their systems?
Good. That's a good question. Actually, I think Armendra sir, I think you can take up this.
No, you can do it because you are more expert.
Okay. So any other documents, basically, as you see, the documented information does not specify any procedural requirements. So you can have several of them, not one, because it is in the food grade. So you can have the daily hygiene records. You can have records in terms of what the client has specified specifically. You can have records of the actual production where you have what is happening, or whatever other documents as specified by the organization or the client can be put as a record or the procedure. Okay. Yes, Yogesh.
These are I will just add into that. These are called as organization's own record, apart from
Correct.
what the standard says.
Absolutely.
So it varies from organization to organization, and that team has to decide what would be the different documents and record apart from the mandatory requirement of the standard. Yeah. Continue, sir.
Yeah, Yogesh.
Yes, sir. In your presentation or the mandatory requirements, I think the legal requirements, the food legal requirements, and some documentation and record keeping is also associated with the legal element to demonstrate whether the legal requirements are met and the records related to that. So I will ask Dr. Kataria. So what could be the legal requirements in terms of the food industry, and in what way they can comply those requirements and have their records in place?
Thank you, Yogesh. First of all, I welcome Mr. Muralidhar, who is very experienced in food safety, but I can say he's one and all. Whatever standard you ask for management system of ISO, he has everything on his cap. Feathers are, so many feathers are there. Okay, very. And we are also very lucky that Amendra, Mr. Maha Muni, as his name says, Mahamuni. So he is also one of the expert with so much of qualification and representing so many. Plus, he is also bringing the magazines regular. So I compliment him, and we are very much thankful for your participation.
Thank you, sir.
Now, there are whatever requirements are there. There are a lot of other requirements also, which is coming from legal and regulatory requirements, and which keeps on changing with the time. If you see recently that our FSI also have added nutrition value to be put on the labeling. Then also they are talking about the allergen and toxicities also. So these new requirements keep on. So what I feel that our auditor, the companies, manufacturer, they should ensure they comply with the legal requirement, getting the license, especially you are in high risk food area, like you have meat, milk and milk products. So there are a lot of requirements which are very well spelled out. And there are guidelines bought by APEDA, they're bought by FSSI. That guideline has to be followed. Apart from that, I think the company, the manufacturer who produce a lot of waste or a lot of hazardous things, so they are also controlled by the Environment Ministry. Their guidelines are there. And the standard, I don't know whether it calls it or not, but they are likely and liable to ensure, especially if you see the milk and milk products. So a lot of waste comes out, mud comes out, which the mandatory requirements are there to have ETP. Even the big corporate who are there. Now, as Murli sir has told, there are a lot of waste may come as a rejection or anything, how it has to be handled. So there is a, like UA and Gulf countries, they're very well regulated. Without the authority, Dubai municipal or any of the municipal, you cannot dispose unless you get a written permission from them and how it has to be. So there are many requirements, labeling, environment, registration, licenses, and especially very important is the food testing. Now here, what is the food testing frequency should be there? Like Murli sir has clearly told, that has to be done for raw material, for ingredients, for during the manufacturing, the final product. So a lot of requirements are there, which are coming from through the legal and regulatory requirements. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Just can I add something in this?
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yes, sir,
yeah.
please, sir.
See, a lot of legal requirements are there, like what sir has said. FSSAI license is required. Then Factory Act, if it's the bigger factory, then Factory Act is applicable. Okay. Apart from that, you have if you the factory is in Maharashtra, then Maharashtra Pollution NOC Control Board NOC is required. Okay. Apart from that, whatever the information is given on the label, it is the mandatory requirement. It is the labeling. There are, I think, 15 points which are considered to be a mandatory requirements. Okay, apart from manufacturing date, lot number, batch number, veg, non-veg logo, then customer care number, storage conditions, instruction for use. Okay, all these things comes under a legal requirement, and what Dr. Katare also said, nutritional information. Okay. Apart from that, what I add into this most important in post-COVID era, or rather during the COVID era, biomedical waste. It was not actually in a food industry earlier in pre-COVID era, but nowadays biomedical waste is the most dangerous waste as far as food industry is concerned, because lot many people are using masks, caps, hand gloves, or PPE kits. Okay, and these are thrown everywhere in the premises, and this is supposed to be the big challenge for all the food industries in coming years. Okay, and it is not considered as a normal waste. It has to be considered as a biomedical waste, and it has to be disposed through a proper legal way. You cannot throw it anywhere or by through my municipal corporation. So state government has appointed some legal agencies who can collect this biomedical waste, and they can dispose it up in their own legal manner. Okay, so this also you can consider, apart from health certificate is there of the all employees. That is also a legal requirement. Water testing is there, pest control is there. So these are also legal requirements for the food industries. Okay.
Sir, Arvinder sir, can I ask, sir, can I please, good subject that you came up.
Yeah.
Actually, I also had the similar, Yogesh, please permit me.
Yeah.
I came across a very, in audit, everyone comes across, because it is a daily learning actually.
Yeah.
So, but there was a typical case where they said that, sir, यहाँ पर तो डॉक्टर हफ्ते में 2 बार आता है.
अच्छा.
So now the doctor 2 बार आता है, and of course, though but since you said biomedical waste, that applies to environment as well as the occupational health and safety. Here the question was 2 ही बार आता है, और यहाँ पर हमारे पर कोई biomedical waste का नहीं है. वो साहब जो इंजेक्शन का जो लगाता है या कापूस वापूस से जो करके निकालता है, वो अपने साथ ही लेके जाता है, और वो जिधर हॉस्पिटल में प्रैक्टिस करता है वो भी आता है, वो अपने साथ ही ले जा रहा है. So in such a case, I mean,
sir, your voice is not much clear actually.
Can you hear now? Can you hear?
No.
Yes, sir. We can hear you now.
Please repeat again, because it was. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. The question, yeah, can you hear me now?
Question, because it was break.
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir. Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Can you listen to me, Mahamuni sir? Are you able to listen to me?
Yeah. Continue,
Okay.
sir. Continue.
The question was, अभी recent audit में गया था, तो कहता है कि डॉक्टर हफ्ते में सिर्फ 2 बार आ रहा है. The doctor is only coming for 2 days in a week, और जो भी इंजेक्शन और कापूस जो यूज करता है, वो लेके जाके अपने साथ ही ले जाता है वो.
Okay.
तो ऐसा में वो डिस्पोजल के लिए आपको क्या स्पेसिफिक, तो क्या करेंगे? Is it
actually, if the doctor is carrying with him, then it is actually your responsibility to see what he is doing actually. Whether he is disposing in a proper biomedical waste manner, or it is just throwing in a dustbin along the roadside. Because being an employer, that is your responsibility. Okay, and actually what I will say, you should not give it to the doctor, because it is not a doctor's property. Whenever things happen in your own organization, medical testing and other things, all that waste collected, it is your property, it is your responsibility to dispose it of in a proper legal manner, and it is not a doctor's responsibility.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would like to continue that question, which is popping up in my mind.
Yeah.
Especially if you see the meat industries.
Yeah.
Now that meat product or meat raw material like eggs or the milk, which gets spoiled, which
Okay.
get decomposed, especially meat items,
Yeah.
is not properly handled.
Yeah.
If the cold chain is not controlled, then you have problem.
Yeah.
Now that is also bio waste,
No,
not a
no.
biomedical waste.
It
It
is
is a
not a
bio waste.
biomedical waste. Yeah, bio waste. Yeah.
Yeah, bio waste. How you can you put some light? What is the law in India to control that one?
See, nowadays, many meat industry has started their own fertilization plants, actually, composting plants. Okay, so what they do, they start like the way dairy industry or other industries having ETPs. So now they are having composting plants in their own premises. So whatever the leftover or body parts are there, they are just composting, making it fertilizer, and they're selling it to the market. But these industry are not supposed to throw it away anywhere in the outside environment, and even corporation also doesn't collect these things apart from only this plastic waste and other things. If you can do composting of your own, it is good, and it is enough and good, actually.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, Amarendra sir,
Yeah.
I just wanted to continue with you.
Huh?
योगेश आपका आवाज नहीं आ रहा है.
Yeah. Voice is not clear.
योगेश आपका आवाज नहीं आ रहा है.
So what would be?
I think Yogesh, I can continue with some questions which have come on the chat box. Now this is for Muralidhar sir.
अरे बाप रे.
Detail of CCP and HACCP. What is the difference between PRP and PRP?
Okay.
Okay. So
From Aradhya.
from आवाज नहीं आ रहा. Okay.
Aradhya.
Okay. First is the PRP. Actually, if you pick up the standard, everything is available there. Basically, just to say, the PRP is nothing but the basic requirements for food safety, basic conditions and activities. That is the PRP. Then the OPRP is the control mechanisms or the procedures, as I told you in the presentation. O stands for operational. So control measures or the procedures or the SOP to make it as per the acceptable levels. So that is what it is. So CCP is the critical control points under which if it is ignored, it might lead to unfortunate events. So these are all mentioned in the standard very nicely. So I think you can also refer the standard if you require, and you will get the required. So CCP is step in the process at which the control measure is applied to prevent or reduce a food safety hazard. For example, the physical one, as I told you in my presentation, if there is a nail or a wood coming up, so what is the mechanism that you have to control that is called as the CCP. Okay, I hope that answers.
Shall I continue?
Can you give some, I think give some practical example.
Yeah. Can I continue on this? Yeah.
Yes.
Actually,
Yes.
Sorry. So PRP is nothing but these are the minimum basic requirements before the start of the factory. So unless and
please go ahead.
Yeah. So PRPs are the minimum basic requirements which are required before the start of the factory. Unless and until PRPs are not complied, you cannot start the even construction of the factory. Okay. If you see the FSSAI Act, Schedule 4, Part 2. So in that Part 2, there are the 12 requirements, and these are nothing but all the PRPs. So building, construction, layout, pest control, training activity, then operations, management, control measures, even food testing facility, sanitation. So all these are nothing but the 12 PRPs, 12 requirements. These are called as PRPs. Now coming to the OPRP and CCP. Okay. So CCP is, as sir already said, CCP is the critical control point, and this is the last control point in the process step. Okay. So after that, there is no control measures, and this is the last step, which actually defines between a safe food and unsafe food. Okay, so that is the last stage, and it has to be controlled. Okay, but OPRP, these are the operational requirements of, these are the PRPs of the operations. Okay, so CCP has limits. Almost all CCPs has limits, but not all the OPRPs have limits. There are some OPRPs without limits also, like filtration or destoning machine, or you can have magnetic separator or metal detector also. So the no need of any limits, but still they are causes major harm if they are not controlled. So OPRP can become a CCP in the future if it is not controlled in a proper manner. Okay, so actually, if you see the hazard analysis critical control point, there are two hazards. One is significant and another is non-significant hazard. Okay, so non-significant hazard is always controlled by the PRPs, and significant hazards, they are controlled by the OPRP and CCP. Now, how to differentiate between OPRP and CCP? So there is one scientific method which is defined, and that is the use of decision tree. So if you use decision tree, then you will be able to differentiate between OPRP and CCP. So OPRP examples are already given. CCP examples, you can have time, temperature, pressure, relative humidity, or addition of sugar, addition of salt, addition of oil. These are the main examples of CCP, which is considered as the last stage. Okay, after that, there are no control measures and product can become unsafe. Okay, thank you, sir.
Sir, in continuation to that question only, there's one more question, that is, what is the documents required for PRPs and OPRPs?
See, PRP, as I told you, health checkup, then pest control activity, then all your hygiene and sanitation related documents. These are comes under PRPs actually. CCP, you will have temperature monitor, temperature controlling, pressure controlling, depend on your product actually. So what is the process and what are the products? So either there is a one CCP or there is a combination also. More than one CCP is also present. Okay, and OPRP, you will have magnetic separator, magnetic detector. So you can have validation of the magnetic separator and magnetic detectors. That comes under the recording. I hope
yes,
you are satisfied. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So basically, PRP and OPRP should have the documentation as well as the records.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. So next
I can
question.
Also,
yes, sir. Please.
Further, just more clarify, give you the example for CCP and OPRP. If you do the pasteurization process in the milk industries, plate that pasteurization system, where you are having temperature control and also the pressure control, and that timeline also, how much time the temperature has to remain, so that your milk get pasteurized. So that will be PRP or OPRP, CCP or OPRP?
No, it is a CCP actually. It is a combination of time, temperature, pressure. So it is a CCP only. It doesn't come.
Yeah.
It doesn't come under PRP.
Correct.
Sometimes what happens actually, one hazard can be controlled by many control measures, or in other way also. So many hazards can be controlled by one CCP. So that again depends on your product and process. Now in continuation with the milk pasteurization. So what is the objective of pasteurization? Just to reduce the pathogen. That is one objective. And another objective is inactivation of the enzyme, phosphatase enzyme, which is present in the milk.
Correct.
So these two hazards are controlled by one method, that is controlling temperature and combination sugar. So that controls the biological hazards also. Okay, so many combinations and permutations are possible, but it depends on the product or product mix actually. What is the recipe? What is the formula? depending on it changes.
Especially processed milk when you store and tanks, then you maintain the temperature 5 degrees
Yeah.
centigrade. Now
Yeah,
that
less
will
than
be
5.
part of this OPRP, no? Basically.
See, there are again two ways. If you consider only the manufacturing process, okay, so in that case it can consider as OPRP because already milk has pasteurized and the hazard has already removed or eliminated or reduced to the acceptable level. But if you consider specifically it as a transportation and distribution channel only, so in that case it becomes a CCP because for them there is no another way of controlling the hazard. So for them, for distribution channel, it becomes a CCP. Or for retail also, storing the milk at less than 5 degrees centigrade, it becomes a CCP. So from farm to fork actually, or food chain. So depending on the food chain, it varies. And it is the responsibility of the dairy to confirm that
Thank you, sir.
till the product is consumed, it is in a proper manner. It reaches to the customer in a proper manner.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah.
The next question in the chat box is from Mr. Anandpal Singh, and the question is to Murli, sir. Are documents important? Why the documents are important?
Wow. Well, I think the Europeans have come up, I think, very long time ago because they don't have water there. They had come up with saying that nothing is complete until the paperwork is done. Okay, so documents are the crux of demonstrating what works have happened. The documents are saying what are the methodologies, that is the procedures that you are adopting. So documentation also saves you from legal complications as and when it comes. So legal is one of the most important areas where you can save a lot of blushes, your fame, and of course the fines. So documents, of course, you cannot ignore it. It has to be done, as I showed you the documentation, what you require. So that is mandatory.
Actually, I will just continue in that.
Yes, sir.
Documentation is a system requirement. And as you see, the ISO is an international system. Okay. So if you want to implement any system, then all these documentation records are important. Otherwise, it becomes a person-oriented system. It is not a system-oriented organization, person-oriented organization. And if the person-oriented organization is there, if that person leaves, then there is possibility of failure also. So that's why document and record plays. These are the rather, I will say, the pillars of ISO activity. So you cannot ignore them at all.
Yes, sir. Amrinder, sir, since you are also associated or doing the FSSA audits and implementation and helping organizations to get the FSSA license. Now, I just wanted to know for if the organization is FSSA certified, and if he wish to have the organization wish to have the FSMS also certification of FSMS. So what could be the are any additional documentation or record keeping required for FSMS apart from the FSSA, or FSSA covers everything for the FSMS?
FSSA is a regulatory body. Okay, so their requirement is a legal document. Okay, so what are the legal documents required for licensing? So they have the legal documents of owner. So PAN card, Aadhaar card, and other things. Then maybe if it is a rented place, then you require rent agreement and other thing. If it is a company, then company certificate. If it is a proprietary partnership firm, then all the legal documents are required. Okay, apart from that, there is one more point in FSSAI license requirement, that is additional requirements. If you see the process of applying the license, then there is an additional requirement. And additional requirement is nothing but the pest control activity, water testing report, health checkup report, and HACCP plan. Okay, so these are the additional requirements for getting the FSSAI license. But this ISO activity is altogether, it's a voluntary activity. It is not mandatory. Okay, so when you go for ISO activity, then there are mandatory records, mandatory procedures, mandatory all documents and other things. So that is different thing, and regulatory is different thing. Regulatory you have to comply, otherwise you will not get the license, or maybe you will face a music in the future if the license is invalid, or if any documents are invalid, then you have to face the music legal will be, because if you see the section 56 of FSSA Act, so up to 1 lakh rupees there is a fine, up to 3 months there is a jail also, if these things are not complied in a proper manner. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, my next question is to Kataria, sir. Sir, what are the challenges that the organization face in the documentation and record keeping?
त्यांना ते सांगावं लागेल, ते नाहीये तिथे, दिसत नाही. योगेश,
Kataria, sir, are you there?
नाही इथे दिसत नाही आता, बहुतेक ते कनेक्शनचा काहीतरी प्रॉब्लेम वाटतोय मला.
Okay.
Sir,
I think
can you
it
hear?
was mute.
Ah,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think your
Please, sir.
question is very, very tricky to reply. In fact, when Murli sir has given presentation, the kind of documentation and record required, everybody got scared. I got scared. Of course, I also do audit, but definitely look into most of the things. And then big challenge is now size of industries, because this Food Act is applicable to everybody who is manufacturing food in India, whether it's small, medium, even the mithai shop. Now, what documents are required is really a big challenge, and how to certify them for legal authorities as well as for ICS also. I can give example, live example. I had opportunity to go to this a big mithai shop, which has become very big now, almost 22 years back. And I was sitting the top guy, Haldiram, the Babuji itself, with his 2-3 sons and all. So that time he had started the company long back, and he was doing it well. But when he started making this, going for modern system and making manual and all, so he was discussing with me, now HSSB, I had to do it. Now how I should do it? I said, you have to have the expert to do the HSCP, because you may be knowing the hazard, but then he will be able to look broadly, horizontally and vertically, what are the activities, what are the hazard coming from. And then he realized, and then with my suggestion, he implemented that, and he employed full-time food safety manager. So that, and apart from that, he also involved the external consultant to make the documentation. Although he had good system, that system was developed in last 10 years of his production, that raw material coming controlled has to be there. Then all this, who are the cook or whatever you call it, they were also controlling it very well. So, and they were also very good, because they were also religious people. So without taking bath, without having, they were not entering into the kitchen. So he had a system, but now this documentation is must. Now the system says you can have on soft. Now again, their education level of those alwais, what is their education level? How they can do it with that? Unless it is on the mobile and with the illustration, then it can be controlled. So it's a big challenge. I think Mr. Muralidhar or Maha is Muni, he will agree with me. It's a big challenge in India to have documentation. The auditor, whenever he goes, he brings up, this is not there, that is not there. Okay. Although the pest control is done by outside, outsider. But final response is mine, manufacturer. And then unfortunately, he doesn't have the manual, he doesn't have the procedure. He has not identified who is responsible for it. So it is a big challenge. That's what I feel.
Just I would like to continue on this, if you don't mind.
Yes,
These
sir.
things happen only
Right.
when the organizations are centralized, operated. Okay, all sweet shop in Maharashtra or India, you can say these are called as SHG organizations, I will say. So they don't appoint qualified or competent people for this activity, or rather they consider this is a secondary tertiary activity, which is not so important as far as compared to the business actually. And in the market, actually, if you see the gray market, so available. So without doing anything, you do certificate without implementing documentation. So that is the proper authority and responsibility is given.
Hello. Hello. Can I add?
To employees
Yogesh.
along with the
Yes.
Yogesh, hello, hi to all. I am Lekha Nair, consultant for implementing the standards, and nice to hear the explanation of Murli sir and the new standard. Can I add, Yogesh? Am I
Yes,
audible?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead. Yes,
Yes,
we are,
yes.
you are audible.
Yes, I do implement all these standards, and the new standard, it is equal to the BRC standard. Lot of requirements are explained in the new standard of food safety, and it is not easy to do the auditors also. It is not easy to do the audit of 22,000, and I just add some points which are missed out. One is statutory, regulatory, and other requirements. Standard, all the standards of ISO mention the other requirements. Other requirements, company can add their own requirements as per the product, whatever standards they mention as standards, IS standards, all the standards, other requirements, and the customer specific requirements also add on to the legal register. What are their particular customer requirements that they can add in the legal register itself. Even it is a new plant, then the storage of chemicals and the storage of other things, they have to segregate. Even for the new plants, I do visit and I do change the even plans of the factories for the storage activities and the waste storage activities, because if it is falling under the food grade. Okay. Second thing is mainly PRPs, OPRPs, and CCPs. There are slight variations, and people should understand the thing. And stage one audit auditors, I will call for, if the PRPs are not implemented, then don't contact the stage two and verify the OPRPs also. For the thing of corona, you can know it is in packaging industry. Then there are corona treaters, and they can verify the temperatures and the timing for the corona treatment for the packaging industry. This is a new concept, and people are implementing the same. Okay. And there are a lot of automatic systems for monitoring the temperatures and the systems. Third thing is on-site verification of flow diagram. Flow diagram, the material loading, unloading area, the auditors are missing out the flow diagram verification. If the loading area and unloading area is not hygienic, then the full product will go wrong. Okay, so the on-site verification of flow diagram is very important. Then the process owner will sign over the process flow diagram. Okay, my incoming stores is okay, it is maintaining the hygiene, it is maintaining all the requirement of the standards, and the process owner will sign the on-site flow diagram there itself. The flow diagram required lot many signatures of the HODs of each department will sign off there flow diagram. If it is individual flow diagrams also, then it is acceptable, but in the end, please combine the process flow diagrams. These are the some stringent requirements of the new standard, and people are failing to maintain the same, then we will be certification will be a question. Okay, so the standard is very good. 2018 standard, I will appreciate. Even BRC people are struggling for implementing the FSMS standards. Okay, nice presentation. All the best to the participants. And I am also implementing the new standards with the new companies with a lot of challenges. And even I have changed the AHUs, CHUs of the companies for mixing of the chemicals, and I don't allow to store chemical storage in the FG area, and a lot of efforts we are taking for the implementation of 22,000. Thank you. Thank you, the
thank you,
team.
ma'am. Thank you for your valuable points that you added to this. One question is to Murli sir in chat box. That is from the Anand Pal sir.
Please mute others.
One question is there in chat box from Anand Pal, Mr. Anand Pal Singh. The question is, where did HACCP come from? That is the inception of the HACCP. Inception of HACCP.
Wonderful.
Should I take it?
Anand, first and foremost, I must say that I have been privileged to be associated with Anand in some of the audits, and he's one of the most brilliant auditors that I have seen in ICS, who adds real value to the client. And I think full compliments to Anand for putting a lot of efforts into that as part of the auditing techniques, taking the name forward of ICS. So first and foremost, congratulations, Anand, for doing such wonderful audits. Okay, now coming to the question of HACCP. The HACCP has come from the Codex Alimentarius. It has been existing before the food safety, which came into existence. That is the ISO standards. So HACCP is a series of events by that as I told you, the starting point is the collection starts from the raw material, loading, unloading points and the processing or the implementation, and the final output is how the HACCP is done. There are several questions asked into the HACCP, and it is a wonderful document from where you can pick up these and implement it. Mahamani sir, आप कुछ ऐड करेंगे? बोलिए sir.
Yeah, whatever you said is correct. Just I wanted to go back to the history of the HACCP, as everyone knows that it was started by the NASA, US Army Laboratory, and Pillsbury. So almost in 1960s, actually, to be precise, 1958, the process has started, and NASA wanted to send astronauts, and they asked for the food safety system, and Pillsbury quickly acted on that, and NASA, along with the US Army Laboratory and Pillsbury company, they have developed the system called HACCP. That is the history actually, and from that it has gone to miles away, and now from HACCP to then on ISO level, that is ISO 22000, 2005, then from 2005 to 2018, and now it is again extension is the FSSC, that is Food Safety System Certification. So it is a long journey of HACCP actually, and it is a good system because I started implementing HACCP since 95, 96. So I know the HACCP system very well. So that's all.
Good. NASA का नाम लिया वो हमारा अनंतपाल सिंह भी एक नासा का ही आदमी है actually.
क्या बात है?
He's from the Indian Navy actually.
अच्छा, okay.
He's an aircraft engineer actually.
अच्छा,
that is why he has to be brilliant actually.
Yeah. there should not be any margin of error at all.
Hey, Anand, आप है क्या वहाँ पर?
Yes, sir, I am here. Thank you, sir.
So my next question is to Dr. Kataria. Since the food industry is very vast, some are manufacturing, some are only packing, some are distributing and all, and the products being handled, the like fish, the perishable products, some food grains and like that. So like this food industry, specific food industry, is there any difference in documentation based on the apart from the CCPs, OPRPs or PRPs? Apart from that, what could be the other documents that may additionally required specific to the food industry?
Yeah, if you see, especially that is vegetable and fruits. That is what documents are required is very simple, because mostly either they are traders, so they will store for 2 hours, 3 hours and sell it. Now document required for them is a little different than document required for manufacturer. Especially if you see the APEDA, I think gives very good guidelines, and they have been working in this food industry, especially agro products. So they give quite a good guidelines, and one should follow those ones, because uh, right from we have seen what time they do the harvesting, how the vegetable or fruits are ripe, and when they are like mangoes, they use artificial process. Now, with this, there's a lot of requirement. You have to follow the specific industries. What processes are there? According to you have to do. So, like this potato and onions. Now, potato, you can have cold storage and you can store for long. Like onions, again, you can radiate it. And with the radiation, you can kill the bacteria and that stop further getting spoiled and have a shelf life increase. Now the process is different. Now you have to have according to those documents, PRP, OPRPs, and even CCPs also. So it cannot be generalized. So, but it is a challenge there, that where to stop what document. But a basic document has to be there, like your policy, HACCP policy. Then you have objective of the organization.
Yeah.
Then you have process mapping has to be there. Then find out the hazard analysis. Those documents are important. Then you have training of people, competence people. So there are a lot of things which are required even for the small industries also. That's all I can say, because we are going to discuss further the legal requirement, other thing.
Yeah.
We'll see what is required.
Okay, I will just I will just add into that. Actually, it is a good question. Actually, although there is no processing, but that's why more focus is given at the farm practices. Okay, so good agriculture practices is a standard GAP or GGAP, Global Good Agriculture Practices, which can give more focus or more light on the farm practices, where to harvest, when the pesticide should be sprayed, what are the days before the harvesting, how many days before the harvesting pesticide should be stopped. Okay, how is the quality of the fertilizer, how is the quality of the soil, how is the quality of even water also. So everything is given in GAP certification. And according to me, for this industry, the more focus should be on a chemical hazard. Because physical hazards are there, but we can remove. But chemical hazards are the most dangerous hazards which we cannot remove. Once they go to the product, it will remain in the product, and ultimately it gets transferred to the customer's plate. So like heavy metals, pesticide residues, fertilizer residues, aflatoxin is there. Then veterinary drugs are there. So many things are there which comes from the farm. And document, and not only document, but record also. So along with the record also that you have to maintain for that particular industry, and storage plays most important role, because once the product produces harvested, then storage conditions plays important role. Otherwise, everything is good till the harvest. But once it is harvested, then storage and transportation, if the things are ignored, then the food safety is seriously affected. And then it is difficult for a manufacturer to again the control food safety when all the chemical hazards are there in full, and it is difficult to remove also, or difficult to reduce also. That's also.
Yeah. One last
Especially,
question.
I would add
Yes,
further.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
I'll just add a few lines on that. That especially the transit and transportation is becomes a big thing. And as you are told, that storage is also important.
Yeah.
Now, we in India, we are having gunny bags and all those things.
Yeah.
But now it is getting woven baggages and all those things.
Yeah.
Plus, our vehicles are not suitable.
Yeah.
I'm very blunt on that.
Yeah.
Suitable for
That's true.
transportation. It has to be covered so that dust and does not fall, water does not fall, rainwater does not fall. You have to ensure everything. And after harvesting, people just keep it on the ground. So it is already getting contaminated.
Yeah, actually,
so really one is,
yeah, FSSAI already given the guidelines, but the shocking thing is people doesn't know because for all transportation vehicles, FSSAI license is mandatory. Okay, so what FSSAI license says for transport people, that means only food items are transported. That vehicle is not used or not utilized for any other transportation. But still the thing is not percolated till the down level. And I have seen the people, they are transporting cement also, they are transporting cotton also, they are transporting food item also. And even cleaning and hygiene again is the most important. If you see the condition of the tarpaulin, for the vehicles which are used for the transportation of the vehicle, I don't know how many bacteria it has actually. It's a worse situation. But still now industries are putting a lot many effort, and they are making their agreement with the transport people very stringent. And as per their guidelines only, they will accept the vehicle. Otherwise, they have started rejecting the vehicles if the vehicle is not according to their plan.
One last question to Mamuni sir.
Yeah.
As per the risk assessment, if certain hazards they need some control measures to to bring down the risk level. So for those controls, those can be treated as additional documents, and records also required for that to demonstrate that yes, the risk level has brought down because of these control measures, and these are the evidences.
No, actually, it is not. I don't think it is an additional requirement. It is the part of the HACCP system only. And record, as you told, record are the mandatory one. And CCP related records and risk analysis record, because it is again goes hand in hand unless and until you don't do the risk analysis. See, earlier the 2005 standard was on hazard based. Now this 2008 is a risk based. Okay, so risk, unless and until you don't do the risk analysis, you won't be able to find out the exact point where the CCP is to be applied. So both these records are mandatory only, and document is also mandatory. I don't think you can consider it as an additional requirement. It is a part of the food safety only.
Kataria sir, do you want to add anything on this?
That's fine. I think we have gone quite a detail, and we had started with the auditing and documentation and reporting. So under that we have covered a lot. So next series, next week we are going to cover more and more. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks the organizer, all the ICS team.
I think thanks ICS for giving me this opportunity to discuss with you, share my experience with you. Thanks a lot, sir.
Lot many knowledge we have gained. Everyone should agree. And thanks, Murli sir, once again for your detailed presentation. Thanks, Kataria sir, for your valuable inputs from the documentation record point of view. And overall, Amarendra sir, your practical experience with respect to HCCP, FSSAI audits, and the actual documentation and implementation point of view. Thank you all. Thank you, delegates, also for participating.
Thank you. Yeah.
And also participating by raising questions, and the panel members, they have addressed actually taken care of the whatever the doubts that you have. Now I will hand it over to Manali for the concluding session.
Thank you to all our panelists. Our next session on 5th February will be on food safety management system plan. ICS is pleased to provide you all its research and development. Publish the following books: Integrated Management Systems, QMS, EMS, and OHSAS, Excellence in Educational Management, ISO, made easy in Gujarati, in Marathi, in Telugu, and in Hindi. For reading any of the above books, please contact Ms. Sushma. Your feedback is of utmost importance. Please register on www.sadgunsang.org and give your feedback. Thank you for being a part of Sadgunsang.